Taking copies, or what we call as clones of an array, is a fairly typical thing that we do in JavaScript. We want to take something, we want to modify it, we might want to remove an item from an array, we might just want to take a copy of perhaps some function arguments or a list such as our drinks. Now, when we looked at the object chapter in this course, we looked at what we call shallow cloning and deep cloning. Now, the difference between the two we did explore, and if you've kind of forgotten, we're going to obviously cover that in this video. However, the difference in this video, we're going to be looking at arrays instead of objects. So arrays are a type of object, they're a special kind of object. We're learning all about them in this chapter. So let's dive in and start looking at the differences between shallow and deep cloning and why this affects our JavaScript programming. So first off, what I'm going to do is call this the drinks clone. And all we're going to do is take a copy of our array. Now, the most easy way that we could do this is ... and drinks. So this is going to spread in our existing array into our drinks clone. So when we go and log this out, nothing looks too different here. We've got arrays inside of an array, which, as we learned earlier, is called a multi-dimensional array. So you can see here that we definitely have our array and everything's been copied across. So in fact, this entire array block here is being put inside and spread the values inside. So it's a direct copy, it's cloning all of those values, and we see the exact same data structure being logged out here. Now, the difference between this, if we go ahead and say drinks, square bracket 0, so what we're in fact doing is now accessing the first item in our array, but obviously it's an array inside an array. So if we in fact wanted to access the string, we would do square bracket 0, and if we wanted the number, we'd do square bracket 1. So at this point, we're inside our top level drinks. However, because we're dealing with our drinks clone, we want to see how updating it is going to affect things. So let's say we want to change our price over to 1000. We're in fact making the change on the cloned object. So we'll save this out. We'll go into our console. So you can see here that we're in fact updating our value to 1000. Now, if we go and replace this with just our drinks, so that's the original reference, we can save this out. We can go ahead and open things up, and you can see that we now are updating and mutating our initial reference, which isn't really a good thing that we want to do or promote these kind of practices, because as we know, objects and arrays in JavaScript are passed by reference, which means that they do not give copies every single time. So if we are referencing our array elsewhere and we decide to what looks like a clone and updating the clone, it's going to actually have an effect on that initial drinks array. Now, before we go any further, let's have a look at some various ways that we can, in fact, clone our drinks. Now, the first one we've looked at is this spread operator. In the last video, we looked at drinks.slice. Now, what this will do is pretty much the exact same thing. If we don't pass anything into slice, it's going to just return us a whole array. Now, the interesting piece is that it doesn't affect our initial array, which means that we're not slicing anything and deleting the entire contents or something like this. But when we open it up, we're still falling into potential errors by updating that original reference. Now, in ES 2015, we also had a new way, which is creating an array from, and we can just pass in our drinks. So this is our drinks that we want to clone. We can hit save, go and open it up, and you can see that we have 1000. So we're definitely, even though we're taking a new array, we're modifying it, all of these are shallow copies. So shallow means that it's going to go one level down. It's not going to go and change all of these references. These are brand new arrays. There's 3 brand new arrays inside this big array. So it's not going to create a clone of those. It's shallow. It's not going to go that far down. So how do we create a deep clone? We can duplicate this and comment this out for now. So this is going to be our way that we can go in and create a complete deep clone, which when we go and save this out in momentarily, this 1000 won't exist. It will go back to 99 because we're not going to be shallow cloning. We're going to be deep cloning. So we get brand new references every single time. Now, in the objects chapter, we looked at something called JSON stringify, and we stringified an object. In this instance, we're going to stringify our drinks, but because this then returns a string representation, we need to then go ahead and parse it. So here I'm going to say json.parse, and we're going to stringify it all in one line. So now once we save this out, we can go into our console, expand it out, and you can see that we are successfully now deep cloning. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this is the only one-line simple way of deep cloning all of those values in JavaScript. We can't, however, stringify and parse out JavaScript functions. So again, this needs to be JavaScript primitive values, which can be converted to a string with our json.stringify. Now, you can also test this out. You can pass objects and functions and things which cannot be stringified, and you'll see some errors respectively. So just to recap, in this lesson, we have looked at our multi-dimensional array, our 3 arrays inside our drinks array. We looked at using the spread operator to create a shallow copy. We looked at drinks.slice, which does the same thing. And we also looked at the new ES2015 method, the array.from, which we learned are all creating shallow copies for us. And we confirm this by cloning our drink in a few different styles, accessing some of those properties, and then making sure that this number doesn't get updated with our deeply cloned approach using JSON, parse, and stringify.